Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. It's your second video of the day. I hope you're all happy and healthy doing the things you love. It looks like it's about to tear it down. Yeah, the weather doesn't look great, but you know what? That's why we're in the house. That's why we have homes, to get out of the trouble. And you know what? Today's transfer news, views and clues update may be a little demonstration that despite all the noise and the news percolating around about Tottenham's potential, though debatable financial troubles, that maybe, just maybe, come of the hour, come of the sniff of opportunity, and we got some good ones for you, some interesting ones, because I'm going to start with a player. In the video that I hope you saw that I put out just before this one, I gave you a little sort of teaser at the end about a player called Georgy Mikadzi, the Georgian / French attacking centre forward, striker, left winger out of Lyon, who, I'll be entirely honest, guys, had sort of flown under the radar a little bit for me when I was looking through French football, the sort of, you know, the takeaways of all of the French predicaments, the financial issues that they're all in over there, the fact that Lyon have just been relegated, pending an appeal, of course, to be playing their football in Ligue 2 next season. And we've already spoken a lot of times before about the likelihood of Malik Fofana, the little man, about as small as Podence for Wolves used to be, maybe even a little bit smaller, about 5'3.5", 5'4", that he'll be leaving. The left winger out there, he'll be leaving, no doubt, and coming somewhere else into European football because of the pressures, the financial pressures that John Textor is under. I mean, he's had an absolute nightmare of a month. First of all, selling his stake for £190 million in Crystal Palace to Woody Johnson, the New York Jets owner. And as we spoke about before, it seems like a massive undervaluation in terms of just the squad valuation of Crystal Palace for the 42% that he owned, you know, essentially valuing Palace at 400 million. But when you factor in all of the branding, the commercial deals, the TV rights money, all of these things, then it's just a bit of a weird one. But obviously, he's had a massive amount of issues. He's been fined in Botafogo, where he also owns a club, in Brazil, where he also owns the club Botafogo for failure to pay for a certain player, who I think is now on loan in Thiago Almada at Lyon, who's a player that I think will also be leaving Botafogo to go somewhere else in Europe. He's too good to be going back to Brazil. And obviously, he has some sort of valuation there. Malik Fofana, another player that will likely be leaving as well, because both players are too good to be playing in Ligue 2 for sure. But there's, of course, this other player, Georgy Mikadzi, who, like I say, he's flown under the radar, right? And I saw the reports this morning, and I don't know whether they're putting two and two together here and just thinking, well, because Daniel Levy likes a target, likes an opportunity, and obviously Lyon's woes, that maybe it's likely that Daniel Levy might go into that direction for this guy. But I hadn't really sort of seen too much of him. Well, I've run him through the Y Scout tool, and I've got his FB refs for you. Go and take a look at him if you're not familiar. He is an absolutely explosive, exciting talent. I think he looks so good. So very good. His stats back it up, and go and see him on YouTube. Obviously, YouTube's probably the highlight reel, but even when you go into the Y Scout and you see him in all of his glory in his various departments, I would just love to see him come into Tottenham as a serious option here. Let's have a look at the story, though, just to sort of verify. This is from Harry Sherlock. I think he's working for Goal, but it's referencing lots of different articles. The articles are all over the place. Tottenham are set to beat Italian giants Juventus to Euro 2024 hero after star striker suffers shock relegation. Tottenham could be set to beat Juventus, the signing of Lyon striker Georgy Mikadzi after the French club's shock relegation. Per Tutto Juve, Spurs are interested in Mikadzi, as are Juventus, but the Europa League winners appear to have stolen a march on their rivals. The North London club, who recently appointed Thomas Frank as manager, are said to be ready to bid for the Georgia international after Lyon dropped into League 2 due to their immense debt. Mikadzi announced himself to the World at Euro 2024 when he scored in all Georgia's group games against Turkey, Czechia, I guess that's Czech Republic, and Portugal. Last season, he scored 17 goals in all competitions and also provided 11 assists. And it's unlikely that he will want to play in the French second tier. To that end, Lyon have appealed to the decision that relegated them. Spurs have already added Matisse Tell to the front line. They've also been linked with Crystal Palace's Eze, Brighton's Brian Mbeumo, although he appears to be set to a move to Manchester United. Let's move ahead. Like, the same story is being reported everywhere. I just want to show you a little bit about the guy on Transfer Market here. So he can play primarily as a centre forward, but he can play in that creative role as well, or off the left. So quite versatile. He's valued at 22 million euros according to transfer market. So you add the appreciation, or maybe you don't anymore because of the fact that Lyon are under financial duress. He's coming out of the VV consulting agency. As I say, he left Metz in 2024 and played for the last season at Lyon. He went for 18.5 million. Now, as you've seen a lot of on the sort of news views and clues that I've been bringing to your attention, when French teams have been paying what they paid in the last year or 2 years for their players, they seem to be willing to let them go for about the same amount of money just to get their money back. And then the amortization over the last year or two on their books helps them to see a little bit of a profit, because that's how much of a financial strife some of these teams are in. And obviously, Lyon, John Textor, has boosted the financial coffers of Lyon with the money that came from the Crystal Palace sale. But, so they might not necessarily be in as much of a financial strife as they were. It's started to rain. It's started to pour down as they were a couple of months ago necessarily. But at the same time, if they are going to be playing in League Two, if the appeal is rejected, then he won't want to stay there. He'll want to leave. And Tottenham are the team that have apparently been making a move for him. Let's take a quick look-see at his stats, guys, for us here. This is his overall stats. So this is compared to the top 5 leagues, right? So it's the big 5 leagues. So it's very important to remember that it's not just against all leagues. This is in the top 5. In terms of expected assisted goals, 1 every 4 games, 94th percentile. Touches in the attacking penalty area in the 96th percentile across the big 5 leagues, 7 or 8 at every single game. Progressive passes received, they look for him, 96th percentile. In goals ratio, 0.64 goals per game, 0.4 assists per game, 99th percentile. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Let's carry on working down the roles here. In terms of penalty kicks, he can take a penalty kick, or he wins penalty kicks quite a lot. And he's very, very good. His passing range is absolutely sublime as well for a front man. He's not too selfish. He loves to connect the dots, loves to think outside the box, do these really clever, intricate through balls. As I say, go and check him out on YouTube if you don't have Scout. If you have Scout, take the time to have a look at him, because it's just really, really exciting. And I tell you what, I'd be on board this one. I would be on board it. I just, it's 45 minutes of looking through him, and I'm just wowed by the fact that, and annoyed by the fact that I wasn't more familiar with him, and I will certainly be keeping an eye on him wherever he goes. His long passing completion ratios, 82.5%. He's a great passer of the ball, guys. Progressive passing, 91 percentile, 3 times every single game. Great passer of the ball, and he can get it where it needs to be and progress the ball up the field. He's in possession. The ball comes through him all the time. He loves to carry the ball as well, 25 times per game, 147 total carrying distance for a forward that could drop a little bit deep, or that just can sort of, carry the ball through the melee, I guess, in the box and around the area. Absolutely sensational. If there's truth to this story, then I don't care if Daniel Levy's doing opportunity sniffing and going around trying to find those value plays in France, because there are great players out there. And this guy, Georgian international, obviously did very well in the Euro 2024. I don't really remember it, to be entirely honest, but absolutely sensational. Really, really impressed with what I've seen. Would love it if it was true. Let's move on with the next story, and we will get through the rest of this update for you. So Xavi Simmons, we spoke about this on earlier one as well. £50 million is apparently the bid if Tottenham are going to sort of trigger that one. As we said in the last video, Matt Law said, despite all of the reasons for Tottenham to be, or Tottenham fans to be going into a meltdown, a good old-fashioned meltdown regarding Tottenham's finances, because he's proclaiming that Tottenham are basically cash poor and that Daniel Levy or someone else is going to put in an injection imminently, then it doesn't really make that much sense to me that Xavi Simmons is also, by his own words, a player that will not be a problem, whose price tag, will not be a problem for Tottenham Hotspur. £50 million. It's an interesting one. I have been saying, obviously, Xavi Simmons is on the short list of players that are looking to play in that creative role. Maybe the Georgian man, Mikadzi, is a player that Tottenham will look to play in that role. He can play off the left. He can do it if Eze or Simmons is deemed to be too expensive. I think that everybody and his dog seems to want Eze coming to Tottenham. But as I've said to you before, if Arsenal were to sell someone like Martinelli to Bayern Munich, where he is definitely wanted, then Arsenal will have space on their left side. And certainly you could make the argument that Declan Rice isn't really a 10. He's not like a technical 10, the way that you think of 10s these days. So if Arsenal have got 4 players now that can compete for those 2 positions in that double pivot in Zubimendi, Merino, Declan Rice, and Christian Norgard, then there's still that space to be able to compete with Odegaard because A, he's not like without injury concerns in the past, and B, he's not really a big game player. Arsenal fans call him Ghostergaard. So I'm just worrying a little bit that this news that Eberechi Eze's price tag is not £68 million up front, that it's £60 million, give or take, in 3 installments, if that's to be believed, and who knows what the truth is, then that not only makes it might be easier for Tottenham to do the deal, but it also makes it a lot easier for other clubs to potentially come in and see value in him. And I could easily see Arsenal looking at Eze and thinking, I don't mind a bit of that. And if that happens, I think the Tottenham fan base will go into meltdown. Then we'll have to pivot to a plan B or a plan C. Is it Xabi Simmons? Look, I love Xabi Simmons. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a wonderful technical player. And he's, I think, probably kind of like Odegaard-esque, but probably a little bit more consistent in the German league. I just don't think you have necessarily the knowledge on how he's going to transfer. He can play out on the right or left, but I think he's more of a traditional 10. Again, it begs the question, how do you make room for all 3 of them in Decky, in Maddison, and in Eze or Simmons or whoever else in a world where they're all fit? It's a nice problem to have, but it doesn't mean that the solution is necessarily obvious when you've only got X amount of money to work with. I had this conversation with Sava and Perchi on last night's late live stream around, look, we all want Eze in an ideal world, but if you only had enough money to go for one player in the forward spot that was going to be a 60, 70 million pound target, do you go for an Eze that I don't believe is a natural left winger? I think or a left inside forward. I think he is more of a 10. I think he's played 90% of his minutes last season for Palace in a 10 that drifts left rather than a left that drifts in. But listen, that's up to debate, and let me know your thoughts. But it still begs the question, if you can't sell a Decky and you can't sell a Maddison, are you really going to drop all of your money, or the lion's share of your money, on a player that I think doesn't necessarily solve the bigger issue, the priority issue in the squad, which is either a 6 or an actual winger on the right-hand side? We shall see. But Georgy Mikadzi certainly is a cheaper version, and someone that, from what I've seen today, I'm like, ta-ta-ta, go and have a look yourself. Go and ta-ta-ta, take a look. Next story for you guys is that the Alejo Valiz's deal to Racing in, I think it's Argentina, that looks like it's going ahead. I think that there's been some sort of movement there that Racing need to sell, or are going to get their £8 million asking price, a release fee triggered for a guy called Maximilio Salas. Don't know anything about him. And that in so doing, they will then have the money to pay $5 million for Valise for 60% of the player rights. And for what it's worth, like player rights or whatever, it's not something that's technically legal, I guess, in the Premier League. I think that rule was kind of outlawed quite a few years ago. But it's just essentially just a different naming convention for the same thing, i.e. a 40% sell-on fee. So if we ever sell him, then 40% of the revenue that would come from that would go to Tottenham, which would be fine for me. It didn't work out. He wasn't obviously a good fit for European football, wasn't ready for European football, and he wants to go home. It's all fine. We'll sort of take that hit on the, on the chin. And if he turns out to be a good player and gets a future move back to Europe in a few years' time, then 40% of whatever that player might be is probably the best way to go. It frees up a little bit of cash. It frees up a squad spot. And I think it's best for the player as well. So we wish him well. We wish him well. Now, John Wenham has come out and spoken to Tottenham News, I think it is, TottenhamNews.com, TottenhamHotspurNews.com. And he has said that apparently that Christian Romero, let me get the story up for you, that Christian Romero believes that Atletico Madrid would demand £100 million if they were selling Romero, and therefore believes Spurs shouldn't accept a cut price deal. Tottenham's stance has been clear from the outset, Wenham said. These fees that Atletico were leaking to the Spanish press were never going to push the needle. Romero is now worth double what we signed him for. If we were trying to sign him from Atletico, they would want £100 million. Therefore, if they don't have the money, he can't go. It's as simple as that. Now, for Tottenham, it is about desperately trying to get him to renew his contract. Yes, there was some frustration about the number of games he missed last season. However, when you look at it in isolation, he was superb against Frankfurt and in the final. He's a winner, and we need to keep those players around at the club. Well, you know how I feel about Christian Romero. I'm more than happy for him to stay if that's the decision that we take. I'm okay with him being here, but I'm really not going to lose too much sleep if the guy does leave, but only for the right price. I completely echo John Wenham's sentiments here that you can try all the mechanics in the game that you want to be able to unsettle a player. You can have that El Cholo, Diego Simeone, phoning him up every day, telling him to do what you can to make the whole situation a little bit difficult because we really want you, but we can't afford you at the price point that Tottenham want. Daniel Levy wasn't born yesterday, and I don't believe he'll go because I don't believe anybody is going to pay the money that Daniel Levy should quite rightly be asking for him. He has only got 2 years left on his contract, and so will he sign a new contract? Will he become the new club's highest earner? Not sure. We'll wait and see, guys. But for me, I agree with the sentiments here. But the idea that we'll get £100 million asking price, I actually think at the same time as saying that we would be paying more if the boot was on the other foot. 100% we would, because that's just the way that the game works. As I said in yesterday's video, I actually kind of, even though it's an unsettling, uncomfortable kind of reality, I actually think that there is some responsibility on the clubs that operate in the leagues that have got the best growth, the best revenue, the best distribution, to be able to kind of pay that money back into the system. It's almost like asking wealthier people to pay more tax because it helps the economy of and the ecosystem of football and the secondary market to operate. If there wasn't that kind of competitive imbalance and therefore the need for bigger clubs to pay bigger slices of the pie, then unfortunately there would be no secondary market for us to offlay the mistakes of our own transfer strategies into. And that's just the reality. No one gets your strategies right all the time. And so there does need to be a little bit of give and take in that regard, similar to the idea that Saudi Arabia traditionally have paid a lot more and have to pay a lot more in wages to convince those players to go out there. We shall see how that story develops, by the way. But for me, Romero, in this market, the way that Saudi Arabia can't seem to convince as many people to join their project this summer as has been possible in previous summers, and the fact that there's this pivot to youth, I'm just not sure if the £100 million asking price for Christian Romero is realistic, especially given the fact that he's only playing about 50% of minutes. But it's certainly more than 40 million. What the right number is, I'll leave that up to the gods to decide. The last story for you guys is a story that's an interesting one, and a player that, I'll be entirely honest, if you watch him, then you might come to a different conclusion than if you just look at the stats. And it's Nene out of RB Salzburg. Nene Dorgeles, I think his name is. He's from Mali, 22-year-old. I'll bring up his stats to show you. I think you can see it on the screen. You can indeed. He's a winger, right? He's a winger and a forward. Obviously, I'm not going to go through this in isolation, but you can see there really isn't too much to sort of write home about here. If anything, the green bars that you're seeing are more in terms of his defensive contributions. He is certainly someone that likes to take players on, and certainly someone that's got an explosive pace. And for what it's worth, when I've looked at him on the Y Scout, I didn't spend too much time on him, but I don't really give the story too much credibility. I don't think he's not ready for the Premier League, certainly isn't ready to come in and fill the role or the expectations that Tottenham have for our wingers. I personally think he's explosive, but he's very rushed and very raw, and he sort of keeps his head down and just puts his foot through it. Dare I say it, a little bit Timo Werner-esque. Can take players on for sure. And when he wants to, he's got a delightful finish. I've seen some absolutely insane finishes where he chips the goalkeeper from the tightest of angle. The ball's almost out for a goal kick, and he somehow manages to chip the goalkeeper. And he's got absolute beautiful talents and beautiful skills in times, but a lot of the mistakes that I saw, and this is the beauty of the Y Scout tour, you can look into the everything reel and go deep into it. I saw a lot of rashness and rushed decisions, and I don't think he's anywhere near ready for the Premier League. I could be wrong. I could end up eating my hat on that one, but the stats sort of suggest that he's not really someone to get too excited about. And like I say, if you watch him on YouTube or on Y Scout, then you might come to a different conclusion. But for me, if that's the sort of area that we're going to go to, then I am very, very much not particularly on board that one. But the great story of the day, guys, for me, is if there's truth to this story that Tottenham are going to go and get Georgy Mikadzi, go and take a look at him. I just think the guy is just he looks just out of your seat sort of stuff. his ability to kind of pick an interesting pass, the least likely pass that you think he would think of in a certain situation. He finds a kind of weird angle, slots it through. He's got a delicious cross on him when he finds himself out wide. He's got a lovely finish. He's fast. He's a small guy. But, yeah, I mean, I'd be really excited about this one. Let me know your thoughts, guys. And I'll see you tonight for a live stream. I think I'm going to be with Connor, who wants to sort of take on the Matt Law assessment and also sort of come at it from a different angle with regards some of the account stuff. So we're going to have a chewing over that one, probably about 9 o'clock in the evening, something like that. Guys, if you are watching this and you prefer to watch this stuff or listen to these things on podcasts, then the Spotify link is in the description. Trying to get that channel grown up. So if you do engage in podcasts, please find me over there. And if you are interested on Instagram, then you can get the little shorts and the clips that I do on Instagram. I restarted that channel because I lost access to it. That's it for me, guys. I'll see you later. Let me know your thoughts on Georgy Mikadzi. That's the real one that I like to sort of drill home about. And you're probably going to be hearing me mention his name a lot over the coming days and weeks. And hopefully Daniel Levy can take advantage of the poor situation that Lyon find themselves in. We shall see. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, bye-bye.